All right, welcome everybody. It looks like we're streaming live on YouTube and recording now. Welcome. This is the Off-Highway Advisory Committee, Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Committee meeting. It's Wednesday, September 27th, and it's just a little after 1. Just want to say welcome. I'm glad that you're all here. In a moment, we'll go around and make some brief introductions, but I'd be really interested in hearing when we're doing our introductions, if you could share a trail experience that you had this past summer or any trail news in your region that you'd like to share. So I'll just start real quick. My name is Stephanie Brown. I'm the Access and Landowner Relations Bureau Chief. And the big news that I have is just I'm really happy to be working with Seth. He's done a great job of overseeing these programs, the Summer Motorized Trail Program and Off-Highway Vehicle Grant Program, and I'm happy to be here today. So, Seth.
Okay, Seth MacArthur. Most of you know me as I hope you do anyway. So thanks for coming. And one of my favorite, I have tons of favorite trails around. One of my favorite areas to go is in the Little Belts. I really enjoy going up there, and I was able to do that with my family and some friends and go have fun up there this year. And it was a really fun time for everybody. So.
Let's go over here.
Terry Eccles, I'm from Missoula, and 2 parts to the second part of that question is I did get a chance to go out and look at some opportunities for trails, and those were in the Lolo Peak area and around the Superior area. The second part of that is would like to meet some of the people that are doing some of the work out there and follow them on some of the activities they've got going, so I have a better feel for what's happening on the ground with some of, not only with some of the grants, but with some of the opportunities that grant funding could be given towards. So that's an objective I have for myself.
Kerry White, a member of the committee. I'm out of Gallatin Gateway. We ranch a small cow-calf operation between Bozeman and Gateway. House prices are through the roof. So trail experience, I was actually able to take Seth out and look at the 5 bridges that we replaced in North Meadow Creek with grant funds from the state. We did 5 bridges in 8 days, over 1,000 hours of volunteer with different user groups, hauling the materials in, and work with Joel out of the Madison district in the tobacco routes. That's where North Meadow Creek. If you ever get a chance, go up there, check those bridges out, and check out the work we did. And Montana 4x4 Association has adopted that trail, and they'll be doing maintenance on it, working with Forest Service.
Yeah, the bridges are the smoothest part of the whole trail because they're big boulders. So yeah. I was not expecting the big boulders, but it was fun. Yeah.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Hope Stockwell. I'm the administrator of the Parks and Outdoor Recreation Division here at FWP, in which the trail grant programs are housed. I was on medical leave this summer, so I'm feeling a little puny right now, but I have been using the trails for rehab. And so I haven't done any of the boulder trails or anything like that, but always appreciate the healing aspect and the restorative nature of being outside and using the trail system to do that. So thanks. I appreciate all of you being here today.
Let's go to Cassie online.
Hi, I am Cassie Myers, and I'm actually from Glendive, so I'm on the eastern part of the state. And as far as like trail systems around here, we have the Short Pines, so that's like about 10 minutes outside of town. And I actually don't have a lot of experience utilizing the trail systems over in that part of the state, and would like to do so just because of where we live. We have a lot of access to, as far as the same amount of travel, like trail systems in South Dakota. And so would really like to get to the other side of the state and be able to utilize some of those trail systems. So.
Great, welcome. Let's see, Julia.
marijuana down there, Three Forks. Predominantly right over at Pipestone OHV. The last year though, I'm self-employed. My business has taken off and I haven't gotten out on anything other than the desk. So I'm really disappointed that we've lost the good weather that we've had, but I can maybe get some fall riding in if weekends hold out. So I am kind of on the back burner as far as anything that's new in the Pipestone trail system. But I would like to be able to help out if there's anything I can do serving on the committee.
Thank you. Justin?
Justin Julian, I'm in Bozeman. And this summer I actually connected from Highlight Creek all the way to Lake Hebgen on single track. So it's about 140 plus miles of single track. And I like to call it type 2 fun. I kind of wonder what the hell I got myself into about halfway through there. But I look back and I'm glad I was able to accomplish it. But it's a heck of a journey on single track to get down there.
Fun. All right, let's see here. I think that we have 3 of our advisors that are on too. Kent, want to say hello?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having us. Kent Wellner, I'm the Deputy Director for Rec, Minerals, Lands, Heritage, and Wilderness here in Region 1. And I think what I'd share is my most exciting news is we've hired Carol Hennessy. She's on the call today. She'll introduce herself, but she's the new Forest Service Region 1 Trail, Dispersed Recreation, and Travel Management Program Manager. She comes to us from the Nez Perce Clearwater National Forest in Idaho, which has the most extensive trail system in the region mileage-wise, both motorized and non-motorized. So Carol, I think, is just an excellent addition to the regional office. And I'll let her introduce herself, take a little bit more, but I think she'll be a great addition as an advisor to this team. So thanks.
Thank you. Let's move right on over to Carol.
Good afternoon, all. It'll be fun to get to work with you and know you. I, of course, don't have a lot of experience with what went on in Montana this summer. I was on the Idaho side, but I've been on the boundary of Montana for over 20 years, working on the Idaho side. A lot of pack trips into the Watchtower Mountain area off the Bitterroot. Know Jill Sather really well. That bridge project sounds just like him and a lot of fun. So I'll really look forward to getting to work with you folks. And I'm sure your structure is just a little bit different than Idaho, but I've got a lot of experience in working with these kinds of groups. And I love the collaboration that occurs and the support that occurs for what goes on with all your good money that goes out to us. So thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Welcome. And Brad.
Hey, everybody. I'm Brad Cullen. I'm one of the outdoor recreation planners for BLM and Butte. I'm also the Trails and Travel Management Program lead for the Montana Dakotas. So all the various BLM field offices in those 3 states. And I'm also the Pipestone manager, at least for the BLM side. A couple of things we got done up there this summer that might interest this group is we did get all of our loading ramps rebuilt. They're consistently being vandalized for whatever reason. And then we've also done some annual maintenance on our vault toilets. And we did get the entire trail system maintained in I would say about May. PJ Brown was able to come through with his SWACO unit and he spent about 2.5 weeks up there. So things are looking decent anyway. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for your time and being here today. Really appreciate it. The purpose of this meeting, I think it's the first time that we've done a fall meeting before. And one of the main reasons why we're doing that is because we're bringing all of our recreational grant programs into consistency and process. So our State Trail Advisory Committee typically meets in the fall and spring, and we're looking to do that with this committee as well. So having a fall meeting so that we can give program updates, review our application and review our scoring, and to also gather feedback on that from our committee members. So that's the main reason why we're doing a fall meeting today. If you look at the agenda, we have 2 separate parts for OHV application review and scoring, and same with the summer motorized trail program. So We're going to review applications and scoring for both of those. And just to be really clear, the applications and scoring are so similar that we're going to do them in tandem, which means that we'll probably get out of here much earlier than 4 o'clock. So we're just going to bring that together just to expedite the meeting a little bit. But before we get to that, I'd like to give some program updates. In the agenda materials that we sent, I included our charter, and similar to what I just mentioned, we are reviewing all of our recreational grant program charters or our committee charters to make sure that they're consistent as well. And we updated the charter. It is in draft form still, and it's going to go through an internal process as well. But we wanted to highlight some of the areas that we updated, and I'll have Hope here chime in on committee oversight and resources so that she can explain what we've changed there, or what we're proposing to change, I should say.
Start there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Just again, to highlight, this is very much in draft form, looking to get any thoughts or feedback you have today. We have still a lot of road to hoe here within the agency internally as we think about bringing consistency across programs and committees. I'm speaking specifically to the oversight of the committee and who serves as the committee sponsor, and then the decision-making structure. That is not set in stone by any means. Again, we're still reviewing it internally. I would consider this an alternative that we're putting forward for consideration to get some feedback. And it, may look different by the time we get to the final version, which we would have out in advance of your spring scoring meeting. So the new version would be the version for the spring scoring meeting. Just a note that in addition to the internal discussion that we're having around these things, these will be reviewed by both the director's office, and then we do send them to the governor's office for review as well. So just for awareness of steps in process here.
So the other piece that we updated within the charter is really centered around committee membership and roles. We updated the roles section to reflect really how committee members may provide input and propose changes to the department when it comes to these grants. So this committee here can provide input for project eligibility criteria. So what kinds of projects the state would consider for funding. Another area is project sponsor criteria. So what kinds of projects can receive grants, and project solicitation, evaluation, and selection criteria. So that's really where we're looking for your feedback and input as well. Wondering if there's any questions.
I have one, Stephanie, on the following page past the roles. Committee may assist and review the state trails plan. I think that came out maybe 4 years ago, maybe more.
20.
A little bit more.
Every 10 it's supposed to be done.
There's a really old one from early 2000s
Yes.
that our goal is to update in 2025.
2025.
We're laying the groundwork now to get us to that point. So
Yeah, so my question on the roles earlier, it says during a public notice meeting, is it appropriate for the members of this committee to make recommendations or things to that state trails plan outside of an OHV publicly noticed meeting? Or is that?
yeah, so that's not specifically stipulated for that sentence that it's part of a publicly noticed meeting. I think that, there will be a public involvement process that's likely to include scoping and a public comment period, and you could certainly participate in that without running awry of this.
Okay.
I think that sentence there is kind of, we haven't gotten to this point of planning, but I could see a day where we'd call both committees together, the State Trail Advisory Committee and the OHV Advisory Committee, for something as big as a state trail plan for discussion together, So we don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but this would not preclude you from taking part in any of those other versions of
So,
process.
you know, and there's a conflict of interest statement that of course is in here and stuff. So for that state trails plan, it says data collection methods. Do you see, would that be against the charter of this committee if we were to help assist in data collection for the development of the state trails plan?
Point me real quick at the, I forget where the language is about the conflict of interest, report conflicts of interest. So that report conflicts of interest before the committee makes recommendations on grant awards is specific to grant awards.
Okay.
So I don't think that it would be the same for that
Okay.
discussion in the trail plan conversation.
Okay.
Thank you for your questions. Yes.
One question that comes to mind on this is the differentiation between committee members, the actual advisory committee, and the individuals that either are sponsoring a project or have interest in the project, and how they relate to participation in an advisory meeting like we're having. How do you differentiate or quantify or accept or decline their offering their contribution to a particular project?
I think I just want to ask a clarifying question.
Sure.
So if we had an applicant that, or a potential applicant that wanted to give feedback, how can they participate in giving their
Correct. And
insight?
how does the advisory group interact with that during a meeting or prior to or afterwards?
I would say that during a meeting, they have the opportunity to make public comment, and we would then take that into consideration. Do you have more to add to that?
I think just that interaction really should be in a public forum at that point. Once you enter into a phase where you're reviewing applications, it would seem more appropriate that be done
Okay,
that
I
way.
guess it stems down to that person identifying their position and what they're presenting and representing that particular project. Having worked on similar things, it gets confusing as to an advisory committee making a recommendation to Fish, Wildlife and Parks versus a sponsor of a project making that contribution. There is a separate sequence of events in that idea or in that process.
Can I give an example to see if I'm tracking
Sure,
right? So
sure.
let's just say in the spring, we're reviewing our applications and the committee is hearing from staff how they scored, and we're hearing how you scored. And then during public comment, we may have an applicant that's speaking on behalf of their application and trying to promote it just a little bit more during that public comment period. And you're asking how we would take that into consideration.
Right, and especially if the advisory committee says, I think that's an example, and I'm not saying that they would. That's a good project, however, we recommend that partial funding be given to that. That's the advisory committee role telling you, but how does that then come from the project sponsor?
I don't think the project sponsor can recommend their own project for fun. Like, they can stand up and speak on behalf of their project, but they can't recommend themselves for funding to the committee, if that's what I'm tracking.
Right.
I may be.
No, you're right on, and I guess it becomes a key to the advisory committee to be able to speak from, as a committee, to a recommendation, not necessarily deleting public comment. No, that's very, very important.
Right.
But what the advisory committee makes in a recommendation to you, and that's where this begins to unroll into how the advisory committee plays its or its role as a committee.
I think what I would see is the committee, when we're reviewing all of the applications. So when we're getting down to reviewing all of them, that's where the committee would make their recommendations. It wouldn't be directly after somebody's speaking on behalf of their project.
Yeah, and somewhere that to me, it needs to be defined.
Okay.
That sequence of events or sequence of,
What the meeting looks like the structure of the meeting?
yeah, kind of. But more of the role of the advisory committee and how the public can play into that at a meeting where we're looking at the different projects.
Yeah, so the public would need to stand up during the public comment period and make their remarks during the public comment period. That's
Yeah.
when we would invite that. And that would be a set time on the agenda, as opposed to interspersing through the rest of the discussion.
Correct. And we
Yeah.
ran into that the last
Last
meeting we
meeting.
had, and I was trying
Yeah.
to define that
Okay.
so that
Gotcha.
we all understood our role.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, there were some extraordinary circumstances at the last meeting that contributed to that. And that's part of, bringing consistency across all the programs. That's part of the goal, is so we don't have something like that happen again.
Right.
Yeah.
That may be defined in the RAC process.
RAC?
Resource Advisory Committees that for Title X funds
Hmm.
that meet, they have that described within the procedure of the meeting, how the sponsor can present or deliver, but how the deliberation is done and who's involved and how the public, that might be able to be used as a
Yeah, we can-
template. I don't know.
Yeah, I appreciate the comments on it, Terry. We can think more about that. I mean, for me, it really follows Robert's Rules of Order, which is, or what we use for public meetings in this setting. We had a different version that we used at the legislature, but just following that the public comment should be made during the public comment time on the agenda. There will always be a public comment opportunity on the agenda. Public should make their comments during that time. And as we message for that spring meeting to everybody, we can say something in the press release or however we message to people. If you're a sponsor of an application and you want to come and make public comment, you need to expect to do so during the public comment period, and that will be your time. So we could message that very clearly so that it was more obvious.
That further requires the applicant to really do a better job in their application presentation.
In the written materials
in the
that are
written
submitted.
material, because that's the initial selling point of the project.
Mhm.
And then you get sponsorship or people coming in or users or whomever, then further solidifies the value of that project.
I see the point you're making. Yeah. And I think some of what Seth and Stephanie have set up for going forward for the scoring guidelines and rubric, I think will speak to that
Right.
as well. Formalizing that more so that people know what the expectations are and what they should submit.
Are there any questions or comments from our folks online? Another program update, and this is very new for myself and I think fairly new for Seth, is we're entering the road of rulemaking. So as part of, or a big part of that rulemaking is a focus on MIPA and a programmatic review so that we can identify categorical exclusion for this program. It will make it easier for people to, I believe, apply in general. So we're just starting that. We'll definitely have more information on that for the spring meeting.
Yeah, trying to identify those maintenance projects to where they're, it's not a new trail, it's not new construction somewhere digging in the ground. It's just a maintenance, tread maintenance type thing to where we're not having to review those. Those are exempt through our rules or our rules and whatnot through FWPs.
Reroute.
But to me, reroutes are kind of fit in that same, that same.
But we'll be going through a programmatic review to
Yeah.
assess that, what's appropriate for a categorical exclusion and what would still need some form of review on top of that. So
How does that deal with your requirement for MIPA versus one of the agency requirements for MIPA?
take that.
Sure. So your NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act. So that's one of the things that we're considering. We have a great new lead in our agency, Eric Merchant, helping us with our standardization of NEPA and improvement of NEPA process across the board, not just these programs. But we've been really looking to take a hard look at how we can streamline what's going on with these programs. And the one thing that an alternative I've proposed is that if there already is a NEPA review that's done, that we could have a rule that would say if there's NEPA, then we don't have to do NEPA because the NEPA can stand in for that. So that's an alternative I've proposed. We have to go through the programmatic review and see how that shakes out, but it's something we're definitely considering.
Any questions from our online folks? Because you're making this very easy for us.
Was there discussion on proxy?
We've had thoughts on that since that came up last year. We have not included it, and my thought on that right now, but feel free to give me feedback, is this isn't necessarily a voting committee. It's really been something that's operated on consensus. And the way that we have that written toward the end is that under that committee operating procedures, the second paragraph on the last page at the bottom, the committee will make recommendations through consensus of members when possible, and if not possible, the committee will define alternative points of view for consideration by the committee sponsor, whomever that ends up being ultimately. So that's kind of the way that we've addressed that. Open to hearing feedback and taking that to the director's office as we continue to talk about structure of these.
So I guess under this, it would be appropriate for a member knowing they could not attend the meeting, having the material from the meeting, to be able to comment or give feedback to the sponsor or the agency on that.
Yeah.
Okay, if
Yeah.
they were going to miss a meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think there would be the opportunity to provide
Okay.
feedback, written comments.
Okay.
Yeah, that the committee could have in advance and look at would be the ideal thing, so that they could ponder those as they pondered their own thoughts for the discussion in the committee, I think.
Right. One last thing, and I don't know if it should be in the charter, but according to people that I've talked to at the STAC and also in the OHV, was the department was only giving them the list that they preferred to fund versus all of the applications that came, whether they were approved deficient or rejected. As a member of this committee, I would like to see all the applications because I want to see who's applying, what projects are out there, where the interest lies, even if it does not, it's not satisfactory and it's rejected by the department, the committee doesn't see it. And so I'd like to see them all.
Yeah,
That's just my request.
and I don't think
I've
that's
never
a
held
problem.
any back in OHV,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, and I'd have to review from the State Trail Advisory Committee if there were any circumstances last year in which something was held back. But off the top of my head, I just don't recall that.
Okay.
But that's no problem. I mean, we can provide the full.
And if one is deficient, I want to know the department saying, why is this deficient or lacking in whatever, why it was rejected so that.
Yeah. Well, and just so the whole committee knows, I go through that process to begin with before we ever get to the committee level. And if it's only missing one thing or there's something that just needs to be tidied up, I'll ask for that information and put it in there. I will go out of my way to do that just to make sure they have equal opportunity as everybody. So we don't get that many applications in OHV, and so I'm trying to spread the money as good as we can. So.
And then the other update that I have is really regarding appointments. We understand that there's a few appointments that are terming out here on the 30th. And that's one reason why we wanted to get this meeting scheduled before then. And we're still waiting on direction on what our next steps are going to be for reappointments or to accept new applications. So as soon as we hear guidance on that, we'll be sure to forward that on to you if you're interested in serving again.
And so just so everybody knows who that is, I don't know if everybody's been contacted at this point. So Julia, your term ends September 30th, 2023. And Terry, your term ends, oh, that's 24, sorry. And then who else? Chris Nodell. And then Justin, yours ends 9/30/2023. So there isn't the opportunity to re-up, and we just don't have that process in place yet. But as soon as I know, I'll contact everybody, and it's your choice at that point to try to get back on, or you can not. So everybody else has at least one more year on their term. So.
Right. I think we're going to move forward now to the application questions. And I just want to make sure everybody has a copy of those questions. I sent an email out just prior to the meeting, sending everything, and I believe that we have copies here.
Yeah, it's in. There's another one right there.
So I'm going to turn it over to Seth here. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, the questions for OHV and summer motorized are pretty much identical. So he'll go ahead and review the primary questions that are asked in the application.
Okay, so on that sheet, we broke down basically the application and just some very general terms as to what they ask within the application. So we can all see these. Number one, it's project information. So we get that. Then the project type, concise project description, and then the project description or the project narrative. And so after that, then we go through goals. And then within that, that's kind of the beginning of our application, the very general information that we're looking for to try to understand what the project is about, what they're doing, what it entails, the type of work that's going to be done, and maybe who the partners are in that process too. So as we look at those, is there anything else in that, maybe that beginning category, not necessarily a lot of information, but information that might be worthwhile in collecting as we look at an application? Just in the general sense of those first 4 or 5 topics. Is there anything else that comes to your mind as to something that would be a good thing for the committee to see in order to maybe help them in that decision process? Because, and the reason, maybe I'll let you think about this a little bit, but the reason I'm asking is because in this process, we're going to be moving to a new computer program. I thought it was going to be this year. I was going to go through this process earlier in the year to try to come up with a new application. We're still going to be next year. So this year will be in web grants. The following year, we will have a new ServiceNow program for grants, and all of us will be using it. And so I want to try to refine our project application so we can make it better, make it more efficient, get rid of stuff that we don't need to know, that kind of stuff. So even if you don't come up with something today, but you're looking at this at home and say, it'd really be good to have this type of information. I would kind of like to get an email going with the committee and have it go back and forth to where.
I'm going to say timeout.
Yeah.
Do you want?
Yeah, just circling back to that consistency piece. And this is one of the things that we just said about an hour and a half ago in the State Trail Advisory Committee meeting. Anything that we want to share regarding the application or scoring or anything that we're talking about that's on the agenda today, we really ask that it stay in a public forum. So if we could try to make those comments today so that they are recorded and the public is very aware of those comments, that would be helpful. I'll just tag on to what Seth is saying, and where we are going to be moving to a new application system for the 2025 cycle. At that time too, we are going to take a deeper dive into these application questions, because when we move to that new program, we may revise our application questions. So for this year, we're going to continue with web grants. We're going to continue with the same questions that we've asked in the past, but when we meet in the spring and next fall, we'll really be looking at the whole package a little bit differently and how we should change those questions and maybe modify what it is that we're asking. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head as we go through this year. But the questions that you see right now are very, very similar, if not the same, as they have been last year.
Yeah, I know. they're the same.
So if you have any feedback, we can take that now too into consideration for next year. Sorry, Seth.
Oh, no.
We didn't get a chance to talk with Seth between meetings to share that information. So,
Yeah, no, that just wanting so that everybody hears all the ideas, because that can generate more discussion and thoughts and feedback. And so just wanting to make sure everybody's got the same considerations in front of them at the same time. And again, if the public joins us, that they can hear that and also make comments on that when we've got that time set aside on the agenda. So appreciate that. Looking for any ideas you have, not looking to cut off discussion, just wanting to do it in the public forum.
One of the things that comes to mind, and I don't think it's in the, how would I call it, the Montana codes, but identifying the type of user that this application is for. We used to do type 1, 2, 3, and that would be motorcycle, quads, side-by-sides, Jeeps, sandrails. Anyway, in the application process, if a person said this is for the bike type, two-wheeled OHV, that's where this money is going to go to, would be for 100 miles of two-wheeled vehicle usage. And the benefit to that is you can tell where your money's going to, who's getting the benefit of that. But it also, in the design of the application, people who make that application can say, I'm going to be doing maintenance on 10 miles of quad trail, 10 miles of Jeep trail, 10 miles of whatever. It then has some quantitative measurables to the project. And that proved very valuable in the application process, review process, and accountability process.
and that is what happened historically in past applications.
No, and I'm sorry, I relate that to when I was working with the Oregon OHV program. And that helped us a great deal in defining the purpose of an application.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It's helpful.
Yeah, I concur
So-
with that. I kind of felt the same way the last couple of meetings. A lot of grants went to 50-inch and above trails for us. And if there was a way that we could, even if it's reaching out to different groups to try to increase the two-wheel vehicle opportunity, it just like there's just hardly any. The last couple of times I've sit through this of seeing any kind of new trail or any improvement on trail on any of that stuff. So be interesting to see if there's just a way not only to classify it, but to gain more participation there.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so then we'll look at, these are the, I guess, the meat and potato of the application here. These this bulleted section. And these are generally the questions that are associated with what the applicant's answering, or the sponsor. And so the first one is, what are short-term and long-term maintenance plans for this project? And who will perform the maintenance? The second one is safety and ethics education benefits. The third one is partnerships established. The fourth one is resources to be protected or enhanced. Fifth, trail safety and maintenance improvements. The sixth is community connections. And then benefits and extent of the proposed project. So are there any questions on? And I know we've all had the opportunity to look at the applications in the past, so that's basically what was wrapped up in that the biggest part of the applications we looked at, so.
One of the things that I find, if you're looking to the future, and nothing against the Forest Service or the BLM, but they see some money out there to help do their projects, which is great when they do, but the competition for money is going to become more and more intense. So in order to measure that out, there's got to be some sort of measurables or quantifiable product. If they say 10 miles of maintenance, that's measurable to see whether they did that. How many partners did they come in? Were the clubs in support of the proposal that the agency or land manager had? What are the sources of funding? Could be volunteers, could be actual dollars. When you look at that future, when the demand for money becomes increased, you've got to have something that you can say, they put in X number of miles of trail and they were able to accomplish that via this volunteer group, this club sponsor. Those become important factors for people in the advisory committee to be able to evaluate.
Seems like we could update the application form to easily include the types of recreation and the number of miles we're talking about. Yeah.
And it depends on currently how they fill it out, whether they include that or don't, so.
But if they're reminded of that, that's an
Yeah.
important factor, then they'll do that.
Yeah.
I mean, the people will fill out a good application if they're asked to.
Yeah.
So we can look at adding those specific questions to prompt that.
Okay. Any other comments on the application form itself? Okay. So now let's look at the scoring rubric. Okay. So they are separated by program. So the traditional OHV and then the summer motorized program. So this is the rubric. Since all of you have been on the committee, we haven't really had the opportunity to use the rubric just due to the lack of applications. We've been able to fund everything that's been available. But this is kind of how it's laid out, or this is how it's laid out currently. And so I just want to make sure everybody had a copy of this and then could, make any comments as to their thoughts on it. So the first,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, why is one of them max 10 points and the other one max 30 points?
Because that was just how I guess maybe the weighting of the scoring criteria, the weighting of what that is. So it's
So
they're
the
all
summer
10.
motorized trail has better weighting than the other one. Got it.
Well, they should both be the same in the categories, the two of them. Or are they not?
I think if you look between the boxes, the multiplication might have just been off.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So like nature of trail project, that should be 10 times 3 for a max of 30 points.
Okay, yeah. So
And
this should be
partnership
20.
volunteer support should be 10 times 2 for a max of 20
20.
points
Okay.
to get to the weighting. I think it's a typo.
Yeah, it's a typo.
Right on.
I did.
I was
thought maybe
sitting
the
there
two
trying to
sheets
figure
were-
out the math. I was like, man, I am
Yeah.
struggling here.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I didn't
All good.
see those, so.
We have new math.
Yeah, so does my son, and it drives me crazy.
Yeah, no, thanks for pointing that out. So that's, yeah, that's why that's that way. And so the nature of a trail project, and these are some of the things we can look at and these are the other thing that we have to do is to make sure that the application identifies these things so we are able to use them the correct way too. So how much total use of this project is there likely to be? Annual visits. For a lot of projects, to me, that's very important. Is it being used? Is it a trail that people are using? It's not one that 10 people a year are using or whatever. So trail maintenance miles, what type of motorized use will the trail support? Does the project provide physical connections between resources? And then is this a phased project? So is this just part one of 5 parts? So any comments or questions?
The one thing
Does
I was
that make-
thinking of
Yeah, go ahead.
is, we don't really talk about how many of these actually get accomplished all the way through. And I noticed that year over year, there's a lot of the same folks that come back to us year over year. And I wonder if there's a way to kind of qualify that, or at least know that if they're coming back and last year they only did 20%, the year before that they only did 20% of what they said they were going to do, maybe we weight that some way in case we get to a spot where we need to put more money towards, or don't have enough money to give to everybody, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how hard that would be to execute, but something I was thinking about.
Okay.
I think one of the spots in here too that may be trying to get to that is, will the work be completed within 3 years? So that's going to help us track a little bit better. And I think your point is really valid too, just as we do move forward with redoing our applications and scoring for next cycle, to make sure that those questions are asked regarding like an outstanding application or pieces that would contribute to that.
Would it be of value to have in the application, if they have pending applications out there or applications that are being worked on, for a brief description of the status of that previous year's application, that we finished 50% of it, we have another 50% to go, and here's what we've got left to do. That it's just a quick summary of history in their application process. Trail stewards is a good one. We hired an individual, they spent X number of hours doing whatever. It just summarizes that they're doing the work that they've applied for.
I almost feel that's an overburden on the applicant. There's groups and organizations out there that are running multiple grants and multiple projects all over the state. I'll take Montana Trail Vehicle Riders for one. They're trying to get a grant administrator to keep track of all those grants out there. And if you were asked in this application for a new grant to summarize all the other grants and projects that they have going on numerous forests across the state, it just adds another burden upon that group or organization to provide that information. I think it's on the web grant now, on the new web deal. I don't know what that's going to look like on that new
The status
process. It
reporting.
might be more trackable
Yeah.
on this new program that FWP's putting. So, you know,
They still got to respond though, to get that onto the web, I would assume.
Yeah.
There's still got to be some dialogue
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, there is a status reporting process that we all have, and is filled out. So that, and maybe that falls more on the program manager, not the applicant.
Yeah.
When we can work on that. So just good to know that, the committee would like to know that information. So.
Yes.
well, I think it's good to know the progress and what they're doing out there and their history and stuff, but to give a summary report of everything that they have going out there, it's might be burdensome.
Okay. Any other comments?
Seth, I'm wondering where the safety and ethics piece shows up in scoring.
That's usually the safety and ethics that's the grant. So that would really be in the,
Nature.
yeah, in the first part. And just so everybody knows, there's no way to include everything that's gonna happen in a grant. I mean, it's just too difficult to do that. And so a lot of times we do have to weight them, you know, maybe the words aren't here exactly, but we'll take the opportunity to weight them if we're going through that process to look at them. So, and ethics and scoring, I haven't had a lot in the past few years. Signage is probably the biggest one where we're signing trails and putting stuff. Our education program has really fallen off over the past, I don't know, 5-6 years, probably 7 years. It just is not what it should be. It's not what it should be. And so and safety and ethics is very difficult just for most people that don't know it. I mean, you have to use there is no statewide program. We don't have one. We never have. We've always relied on other national organizations to create those. So the ATV Safety Institute as one of them. So we rely on their people or certified folks to help us teach those classes. And it's dwindling. Those people around Montana are dwindling. I still push people to, you know, that request it. I give them that information so they can get in touch and get those safety classes if they're looking for them. But it's just not something I get calls on that much anymore. So that really is something that I would like to figure out how to focus more on it and get more people that can teach those classes. I even, when I was first put into the program, I even had paid the sponsorship for someone to take a class. But it's never really turned out that he's helped us much. So it didn't really benefit the folks like I thought it would. So it's a difficult thing. And the safety and education portion is definitely something we need to focus on. I'm just not at this point. I don't really know how to grow and make it work here. With our setup, the way we're set up. So
Yeah.
it's something we definitely need to work on.
And I think that's separate from the grant considerations
Yeah.
today. That's a different discussion.
Yeah. So, okay. But no, we would include those in the main. Thank you. And then the second one is partnerships. So we look to make sure that they have the proper partnerships with most of our projects happen on federal lands, so that their districts that they're working in, or forests that they're working in are accounted for, and there's documentation saying, yes, we're gonna work with them, they can do this. The NEEP has been done, all that kind of information.
One of the things that I've seen in some of the applications is that they've actually mentioned club members or clubs that have participated in how many hours they are going to contribute to the project, and not necessarily the key contacts, but how the clubs actually work with the sponsor of the project and are in partnership with the sponsor. And some of those, it was really good to see that there were a number of volunteer hours contributed to this project, and an expectation that will happen on a future project.
And that is how most clubs do their match, is by volunteers. Yeah.
Right.
And so then it goes down to the budget, and we want to make sure that all the budgeted items are eligible for the project. You know, that everything they want to do is something that's eligible within the grant. We also want to make sure that there's match available for those. Any other comments on the budget costs that are listed? Okay. And then the next section is the schedule. And this is where we're looking to make sure that they've defined that schedule that they plan on to complete the project within the 3-year window that we offer. And we, we always know that there's fires and different things that can happen in that process, but we want to see it written out as to how that's going to happen, or how they have it planned to get work accomplished.
Seth, on the work begins sooner than the grant application, it's my understanding that you can't perform any work to get reimbursed for prior to be approved.
Yeah, before the contract is signed.
Yeah.
But I think I have changed that in most of the grants to where in our contract, it'll say as long as it's approved and it's going through that process of, public comment, if the club begins their project, then we could backtrack and
expense money directly.
As long as everything works out and it's approved.
Okay.
Because that's part of all of our programs, actually. So
Is there, just so that I'm clear, is there a window so if they know that they've been awarded and we're just waiting to sign the contract, is that like 4 weeks, or is it?
it depends on our process, how long that takes.
I think that's something we need to look at again and just revisit, make sure we're all crystal clear on
Yeah.
what's allowed or not allowed, and have legal look at that again as well.
I think it should be defined so
Yeah.
that somebody definitely doesn't expend money expecting it, and then they get the grant and they go, no, we can't.
Yeah.
You just ordered $5,000 worth of material from a mill.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that's 2 months out. You better order it now, and then they want a deposit for it, and you got the project coming up. I mean, some of the materials that you're trying to get for some of these projects are not just readily available where you just go down and get them anymore. So. It should be clear.
Be an issue that actually is defined by when the meeting of grant allocation monies are given.
Yeah, that's when the temporary award is created, is during that meeting.
But would it be of an advantage to have the meeting earlier that allocates so that it's outside the work schedule and that they can plan and buy and be ready for the snow melt?
I've tried to do them in April. That's normally when I try, kind of for that reason. Doesn't always happen, but we can try to make them earlier.
Because that is critical, that timing for field work, varies, and ability to buy a 2x4 at the cheapest price, maybe, those kinds of things are really necessary to make this project work. And you're asking to get a bid on a 2x4 in the fall, well, it may be twice that amount, when they actually go out to buy it. So the scheduling might be critical for allocation of funds.
It's a conversation we've been having at a broader scale with some of our other trail grant programs in terms of application cycle timing, award cycle timing, just to maximize the construction season. We're not there yet with those programs to move them up, and we may not be here with this one yet, but it's certainly something that's on our radar.
Yeah, especially when you about hiring. Some of these trail
Hiring
crew
been a
members,
problem.
that happens in the late summer or late winter or early winter.
Yeah. Okay. And any other comments on that? And then the other section is other factors, just what, did they provide more information to help us make a better decision than other applicants? So that's kind of what we're looking at there, photos and whatever else information wise.
Can I bounce back to budget?
Sure.
On some of the applications, and I'm kind of, if it happened yesterday, I forgot about it. But anyway, project budget, some of the applications actually broke it down. Some didn't, or maybe they did and I didn't see it. But when they have a budget that they break down as to, where they're spending their money, really helps.
Yeah, this is the actual application and what it looks like on web grants, and they are asked to break it down
Okay.
in web grants. And then I would think that with the narrative that is supporting their budget, they're taking that time with their narrative
Good.
to really
Okay.
explain that.
Yeah, because I saw it on this application.
Yeah, and it does really depend on the applicant. Some provide a lot more information than others,
Right.
how they break it down, but they've been, from what I've seen over just the last couple of years I've been in the OHV side, they do seem to break stuff down pretty
Yeah,
easily.
the one I was looking at here was well broke down.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
really characterized what the project was about budget wise.
Yeah.
Any comments from our folks online or thoughts? All good? Well,
Julia, did you have any specific comments? I saw your
thumbs
camera
up.
flash
Just give
on
a
there.
good thumbs up.
No, there are a couple of times in the conversation where I just maybe had something that, like Carrie speaking, but you guys kind of talked about what I was gonna raise as a question. So the only thing that I kind of had looking over the scoring was just like having the relative knowledge of knowing how to weight the scores, because someone who's new to this might not know, reading through all of them at once, really where to put the weight on them. But it's just something that comes with reading more than one.
Thank you. Yeah, you'll see that changing for the 2025 cycle where we'll really break the questions down on how they could earn that total 10 points or how they could earn 8 or 6, depending upon the weight that is given to that particular section. So we'll be breaking that down more for the next cycle.
One question, and I think we talked about it at other meetings, is there seem to be 2 different applications. And that's what you're trying to consolidate into one, or I'm confused, I guess.
right now there are two different applications. I think that we'd have to talk with our folks in legal to see if we could bring it into one, because they are two separate they're technically two separate programs. So I don't think that we can bring it into one right now, but we're going to work with our legal division and see what they think. Because we heard that from you. Seth has asked that question too, so
I would like to, so.
we'll see
Well,
if that's
it's
possible.
confusing too, because like on some applications, you'll get certain information. On other applications, you'll get other information. And in some case, they may be applying for OHV or RTP funds.
Right.
And it's how you evaluate that is difficult.
Okay, anything in closing that you'd like to talk about or follow up with?
I think we've moved right along here through the agenda quite quickly. We would like to make sure that we do offer opportunity for public comment. And
How about the funding split?
How much?
30, 40?
Oh,
there is,
that's
There's no
stacked.
non-motorized here. It's all motorized.
That's stacked.
In both of these?
Yeah,
Okay. So
Yeah,
it's
and-
100% zero.
yeah,
Thanks.
right.
It doesn't mean you might not have diversified projects that come into this
Oh.
program, but yeah.
All of these benefit every user out there,
Yeah.
you know, so that's great. And I apologize, I have to leave. I gotta be at EQC.
thank
I
you.
apologize.
Nice to meet you in
Thanks.
person.
Thanks for having me this
Yeah.
morning at the stack.
Yeah, easy to do.
Nice to meet you
Me
too.
too. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right, let's open this to public comment. We do have one person that has joined us, John Morancic. You're here. I'm gonna unmute you.
Hello. Hi.
Hello,
Hello. Can you hear me?
we can hear you.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, I'm on the Board of State Parks, so I just wanted, and I'm a recent member, so I just wanted to listen in and see what you guys were up to.
No good, huh?
Yeah, no good. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
And I joined you late, so I didn't get a good gist of everything you were doing. So, but I thought I'd check in and see what happens around the state.
Thank you.
Yeah. But thanks for.
Whoops. Just kind of, sorry about that, John. I think I cut you off. There we go.
I think I'm back. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So I'm new to the Board of Parks, so I'm kind of getting it all figured out yet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that would conclude our public comments. Does anyone else from the committee have anything that they would like to add today?
Question, do you have to go to, oh, what do you call it when you have to go back? And do, shoot, it slips my mind. If there's a change you need to make in rulemaking, okay. If you were to designate the type of vehicle or class of vehicle, does that have to go to rulemaking in order for that to happen? Or do you already have it, or did I miss it, or?
No, I think we could write that in program guidelines for the application.
Okay,
The application guidelines, we could add that in there in terms of indicating what kind of project and how we would group categories, how we would define them.
okay.
I think we could just do that in a program guideline.
Okay, well, thank you all for your time. I think we're gonna conclude this meeting for today, and we'll be in touch soon regarding a spring meeting and trying to get those dates on the calendar so that we can meet in person. And you'll hear more from us soon. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate being able to listen in.
Yes, thank you. I look forward to working with you folks into the future. So this was really informative. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mhm.